welcome back to the channel TechQuest Learning Point. I am here with a new episode of the series tutorial Create ASP.NET Web Application using C#. Today I am going to start the second episode named Events and Controls in ASP.NET of the series tutorial. The agenda of this session will be number 1. What is events? Events are widely used in ASP.NET to handle user interactions in web application. Number 2. Event arguments. When an event is raised, it triggers an associated event handler. Number 3. Events in application level. Application level events are part of the lifecycle of the web application and occur at the application wide scope. Number 4. Events in page level. Page level events are part of the page lifecycle and provide an opportunity for developers to interact with the processing of a web page. Number 5. Events in control level. Events at the control level refer to the various interactions and actions that occur in web controls like buttons, text boxes, drop-downs, etc. during a page's life cycle. Number 6. Page level properties. Page level properties refer to various characteristics and settings associated with an individual web page. With a small project using C# for backend of functionality, all topics will be easier to understand through the included code snippets, empowering each learner to become an efficient software developer with confidence. The script of the tutorial in PDF is given in the description box. Okay. Prerequisite of this series tutorial. Before starting this tutorial, you need to have the basic foundation on C#. You may follow the tutorial Programming C# for Beginners, which is enough for making the foundation on C#. The link of the tutorial Programming C# for Beginners is given in the description box. Please subscribe and stay with us if you want to get the upcoming episodes of the tutorial. Okay, let's start. What is events? In the context of programming, especially in event-driven programming like that found in ASP.NET, an event is a notification that something has happened in the system. Events are typically associated with user interactions, such as clicking a button, changing a value, or modifying a document. So it's clear that events are connect with user interactions, clicking a button by user, changing the text in a text box by user, etc. These are the events in the ASP.NET application. Events are widely used in ASP.NET to handle user interactions in web applications. Developers can define event handlers, which are methods that execute in response to an event being triggered. Event handling. In terms of event-driven incidents of a web application in ASP.NET Web Form, events associated with the server control originates on the client side or browser but are resolved on the web server by ASP.NET. For better understanding, these incidents can be broken down into two main components: the origin of events and their resolution. Client-side origin. In an ASP.NET Web Forms application, server controls like buttons, next boxes, etc. are rendered as HTML elements in the browser. When a user interacts with these controls, for example by clicking a button, the event is triggered on the client side. This means that the action originates in the user's browser, where the user interacts is displayed. Server-side resolution. Once event is triggered on the client side, the browser sends a request back to the web server. This request includes information about the event that occurred, like which button was clicked. ASP.NET processes this request on the server side. The framework identifies which event handler corresponds to the trigger event and executes the appropriate server-side code. This is where the event is resolved by ASP.NET. In summary, the statement highlights the client-server interaction in ASP.NET Web Forms. Events are initiated by user actions in the browser but are handled and processed on the server, allowing for dynamic web applications that can respond to user input. By default, Visual Studio creates and control handler by including a handles clause on the sub procedure. This clause names the control and event that procedure handles. Event arguments. Event arguments are a way to pass additional information to an event handler in an event-driven programming model. When an event is raised, it triggers an associated event handler that can take arguments to provide context about the event. These arguments often contains data relevant to the event, such as state of an object at the time of event or any specific data that needs to be processed by the event handler. In .NET, event arguments are usually passed using classes that derive from event args. You can also create custom event arguments classes when you need to pass specific information. ASP.NET event handlers generally take two parameters and return void. The first parameter represents the object raising the event, and the second parameter is event argument. The general syntax of an event is events in application level. In ASP.NET, application level events are part of the lifecycle of the web application and occur at application wide scope. These events are managed by the global.asax file, also known as the application file, which allows developers to respond to various application level events that occur during the lifecycle of an application. In my last episode, I discussed application lifecycle, and it consists of 4 key stages with events. Here is a list of common application level events in ASP.NET. Number 1. Application start. Triggered when application is started for the first time. This is where you can put the code to initialize application wide resources. Number 2. Application end. Called when the application is being shut down. This event can be used to clean up by any resource that need to be released when the application stops running. Number 3. Application begin request occurs at the beginning of each request. This event is useful for request level logging, modifying request headers, or initiating request tracking. Number 4. Application end request. triggered at the end of each request just before the response is sent back to the client. You might use this client event for cleanup tasks like closing database connections or logging. Number 5, application error. Code when an unhandled error occurs within the application. This is often used global error handling, logging errors, and redirecting users to error pages. Number 6, session start occurs when a new session is started. This can be used to initialize session variables or track session creation. Number 7, session end triggered when a session ends. It can be utilized to clean up specific resources related to the session. Number 8, application pre-request handler execute. This event is raised right before the request handler executes. This can be used to manipulate requests before they are processed. Number 9, application post request handler executes. Fired when the request handler has executed. This can be used for logging or modifying the response after processing. Number 10, application disposed. This event is called when application is being disposed of. It's an opportunity to perform cleanup when the application shuts down. Let's demonstrate the events practically in the Visual Studio.
Now I am in Visual Studio. I want to demonstrate how to work the application level events. For this reason, I need to go to the page global.asax.cs file. Okay, let's open the global.asax.cs file. This is the global.asax.cs file. As we know, application start event is the default event of this page. This event is available here. Now I will write essential code for these events. In order to show the result of the event, whether it is occurred or not. Let's take a new waveform 1. This is the waveform 1 ASPX space. Let's go to source code behind. This page should be startup page. Set as start page. Let's write the code. Let's run the program to show the status of the output. Here is the result. Application start event is occurred at 56:30 pm and session start event is occurred at 56:33 after 3 seconds. In this line, the application variable is used to store the message. When the event get fired, application start event is occurred at current date time is assigned to this variable, and this variable is displayed with the help of a form load event. Here datetime.now.to string is used to capture the current date time. Let's run the program again to check the sequence of events. When the application is started to run, first the application start event get fired. When application is started to run, first application start event get fired. All the information is stored in the user data variable, and then session start event is triggered, and all the information is stored session data. That's it for application level events.
Application level events in ASP.NET provide hooks into the application lifecycle, allowing you to execute custom code in response to various steps, states, and events of your web application. Understanding and utilizing these events can help improve the performance, functionality, and maintainability of your ASP.NET applications. Events in page level. In ASP.NET, page level events are part of the page lifecycle and provide an opportunity for developers to interact with the processing of a web page. Each time a page is requested, several events occur in a specific sequence, allowing developers to manage interactions with the page, handle data, and perform necessary operations efficiently. In my last episode, I described the page lifecycle to break down it into 7 key stages and also mentioned some events that raised on page level. In my last episode, I described the page lifecycle to break down it into 7 key stages and also mentioned some events that raised under page level. Here is a list of key page level events in ASP.NET. Number 1. Page init. This event occurs when the page is initialized. It is often used to set up controls on the page, initialize variables, and perform tasks that need to be done before the page is loaded. Number 2. Page load, called after the initialization of the page but before any events are processed. It is used for loading data into the controls and performing tasks that need to happen every time the page loads. Number 3, page pre-render, triggered just before the page is rendered to the client. It is used for final adjustments to the page, such as setting properties or changing the content of the controls just before they are rendered. Number 4, page preload, occurs before the page load process, just after the control tree is created but before the page's load event. This is useful for tasks that should occur after view state and post data are loaded but before the main page load logic. Number 5, page load complete. This event occurs after all the page controls have been loaded but before the page is rendered. It can be used for tasks that require all page data to be loaded, like setting final states before rendering. Number 6, page error, fired when an unhandled exception occurs during the page processing. This is usually used for error handling and logging to ensure users receive friendly error messages. Number 7, page pre-render complete, occurs right after the page pre-render event and is used to performing final adjustments right before the rendering begins. Number 8, page disposed. This event is raised when a page is being disposed of. This provides a final opportunity to clean up any resources associated with a page. Number 9, page unload, called just before the page is unloaded from memory. This can be useful for releasing resources like database connections or file handles.
In order to demonstrate page level events, I have come back again to Visual Studio. Here I will show you practically how all events are occurred sequentially. Let's write code for that. Page load event is default event. It is already here. These are the code for page level events. Page pre-init event. This event is occurred just before page initialization event starts. During this stage, each post back, each call back, and each sys cross page post back properties are assigned to values. This is the page init. This event occurs when the page is initialized. When we need to set up controls on this page, initialize variables and perform tasks that need to be done before the page is loaded, we can do it by writing the code under this event. Then page init complete. These events get raised immediately after page initialization. Then page preload event. This event occurs before the page load process, just after the control tree is created but before the page's load event. Then page load event. Page load events get fired when the page is loading. Page load complete event. This event occurs after all the page controls have been loaded but before the page is rendered. Page pre-render. This event triggered just before the page is rendered to the client. At this moment, the final adjustments to the page is happened, such as setting properties. Pre-render complete event is raised immediately after the pre-render event. Let's run the program to show the sequence of the events get fired. First, pre-init event get fired, then init event get fired, then init complete event get fired, preload event get fired, load event, then load complete event, then pre-render, finally pre-render. This is the order in which all events are triggered. Let's run the program to check the step by step. First page pre-init event get fired, then page init, then page init complete, then page preload, then page load event, then page load complete. After page load complete, page pre-render, and finally page pre-render complete event get fired. This is the output. Okay, that's it for the page level or events.
Understanding the page level events in ASP.NET is essential for effective web development as they provide a structured way to handle data, respond to user interactions, and manage the workflow of a web page efficiently. By utilizing these events, you can create dynamic, responsive web applications that behave as expected across sessions and user interactions. Events in control level. In ASP.NET, events at the control level refer to the various interactions and actions that occur web controls like buttons, text boxes, drop-downs, etc. during a page's lifecycle. These events enable developers to respond to user actions like button clicks, text changes, selections, and more. Here's an overview of how events work at the control level, and an example for better understanding. Common control events. Click, triggered when a user clicks a button control. Text changed, triggered when the text in a text box is changed. Selected index changed, triggered when the selected item in a drop-down list is changed. Checked change, triggered when a checkbox is checked or unchecked. In ASP.NET Web Forms, events can be categorized into various types based on their purpose and timing during the page lifecycle. For detailed explanation, the events are broadly categorized into four. These are post-back events, cached events, and validation events. Post-back events. Post-back events refer to the process of sending data from the client to the server and back to the client. In ASP.NET, a postback occurs when a page is submitted back to the server, typically as a result of user actions such as clicking a button or changing a dropdown. In simply, we can say that postback events occur when a page is submitted back to the server, usually initiated by user actions. Common postback events. Button click. Triggered when a button control is clicked as per example on click event. Drop-down list selection change. Triggered when the selection in a drop-down list changes as per example selection index changed event. Text changed. For text boxes, this event as per example text changed occurs when the text is changed, but it will usually require the auto postback property to be set true for the event to the trigger immediately. Checkbox checked changed. This event gets fired when the checked state of a checkbox changes. As for example, checkbox changed. Have a look at example of a postback event. Here is the code behind.
Now the click event of the button control will be demonstrated. We will observe how and when click event get fired. For this purpose, we need to take a button control and a label control for displaying messages. Let's start writing code. We need to take the label control and a button control. Go to toolbox. Here are the controls, label controls and button controls. Label controls need to change some properties of this label control. Right click and click on the properties. Here is the ID. Button control. btn show. Text property show. As we know that the default event of the button is click event. Just double click on the button. Click event handler is created automatically. btn show click. If you go the source, the button label control. This is the code behind. This is the event handler. When we click on the button, this line is executed and the text is assigned to the label control. Okay, run the program. This is simply button control event. When click on the show button, event is triggered and this message will display on the label control. When you click the button, event handler is raised. Let's take a text box and we will check the text change event. Auto post back property must be true, otherwise this event is not occurred. This is the text change event handler. Now I want to add the code. Let's run the program to check the output. When the text box lost the focus, the event is occurred. When you click the show button, click event. This is simply button control click event. Text change event is occurred. Hello, this is simply text change event of text box control. Now I will show the drop down list box. Select a text changed event. Okay, let's say drop down list box. Auto post back property must be true, otherwise selected text index event is not occurred. This is the DDL city selected index changed event handler. Now I have to add some list item of the drop down list box. Here I will add the name of cities. Here drop down list box with a selected item property return the selected item, that is a city name, and all text will assign to the label. Okay, let's run the program to check the output. Here event is working fine. When I select the Washington, event is fired and the Washington is assigned to the label, and here it is show. Now I will take the checkbox verify the check event. Let's run the program. The checkbox control is checked. When it is unchecked, the message is the checkbox control is unchecked. I hope the concept of the button click event, text change event, drop down selected index change event, and the checkbox checked event has been clear to all.
Cached events. Cached events in ASP.NET generally refer to the use of caching mechanisms to store data that can be retrieved quickly on subsequent requests. Improving performance and reducing load times, these terms are not as commonly categorized as events, but caching strategies can impact event handling and user experience. In simply, we can say that cached events, though not commonly defined as events, relate to caching strategies that improve performance by storing reusable data. Types of caching. Application caching caches data at the application level shared across all users. Session caching caches data per user session. Output caching caches the output of a page or user control to avoid processing. Example of output caching. Consider output caching a page to improve performance. This line in a ASP.NET page caches the output of the page of 60 seconds. Validation events. Validation events are triggered during the validation process of user input on a web form. ASP.NET provides built-in validation controls that can be used to ensure that user inputs meet specific criteria before processing. In simply, we can say that validation events handle user input validation by triggering validation controls to ensure data meets specific requirements before proceeding to process it. Common validation controls. Required field validation. Required field validator ensures that a field is not left empty. Regular expression validator validates that the input matches a specified pattern. Range validator validates that a number falls within a specified range. Compare validator compares two input values as per example, checking if the password or confirm password fields match. Have a look into the example of using validation controls. Here is the code behind.
Now I want to demonstrate the validation control, how it works. In this session I will show required field validator control. Let's take a text box and a button. Let's take a record field validator control. This is control to validate property. This property linked with the text box. Error message. Another important thing is that in the web config page under the app settings tag we have to add a key validation settings. Okay, go to web config. Okay, let's run the program. Form submitted successfully. If it is blank, then click on the submit button. Error message, username is required. That's it for record field validator.
Understanding these types of events is crucial in building robust and user-friendly ASP.NET Web Forms applications. Control level events in ASP.NET are vital for building interactive web applications. They respond dynamically to user actions. By handling these events correctly, you can build applications that are responsive and user friendly. Page level properties. In ASP.NET Web Forms, page level properties refer to various characteristics and settings associated with an individual web page, that is, instances of the page class. These properties help manage the page's state and behavior during its lifecycle. Have a look into some of the key page level properties available in ASP.NET. Number 1. Title. Properties: the title of a page that appears in the title bar of the browser. It can be set programmatically or directly in the markup. Number 2. Request. Provides access to the information about the client's request, including the query string from data and cookies. This is useful for obtaining inputs sent to the page by the user. Number 3. Response. Used to send data back to the client. You can use it to write output to the response, set response headers, and more. Number 4. Server. Provides methods of managing server-side code such as URL encoding and decoding. You can use it to perform operations like transferring requests between pages. Number 5. Session. Represents the current user session state, allowing you to store and retrieve user specific data like user authentication information, shopping cart items, etc. Number 6. View state. Used to preserve page and control values between post bags. It's a mechanism to retain user input and other data across requests. Number 7. Client script. Provides methods for registering JavaScript code segments that should be rendered in the page, allowing you to add client-side script dynamically. Number 8. Form. Represents the HTML form element on the page, which can be used to access the values of input controls contained within the form. Number 9. Master. Represents the master page associated with the current page. This allows accessing controls and properties of the master page. Number 10. Page errors. A collection that stores error messages or exceptions that occur during the page processing lifecycle, enabling you to manage error handling. Number 11. Controls. A collection that contains all the server controls on the page. This allows you to programmatically manipulate the control during the page lifecycle. State management and control flow of web form. In ASP.NET Web Forms, state management and control flow during the page lifecycle are crucial concepts to understand. The properties is post back, is callback, and is cross page post back help manage this flow and provide insight into how the page is being accessed or submitted. Here's a detailed explanation of each. Is postback. Is postback is a property of the page class that indicates whether the page is being loaded in response to a client postback. A postback occurs when a user interacts with a control on the page that causes it to send data back to the server. This property is frequently used in the page load method to differentiate between the initial loading of the page and the subsequent postback events. In simply, we can say that each postback property can determines if the page is being loaded in response to a postback form submission or if it's the initial page load. Uses: if each postback is true, it means that page is being loaded as a result of a form submission postback. If each postback is false, it signifies that this is the first time the page is being loaded. Have a look into the example. Is callback. Is callback is a property that indicates whether the current request for the page is the result of a callback from a client-side script using Ajax. Callbacks are commonly used to enable partial page updates without reloading the entire page. This property is applicable in scenarios where you utilize Ajax enabled controls like update panel that support synchronous postback operations for refreshing or updating parts of a web page. In simply, we can say that each callback property can indicate if the page's request is a result of an Ajax callback, allowing partial updates without a full page reload. Uses: when each callback is true, it signifies that the request was made through a callback, usually via Ajax, allowing you to handle the request differently than a traditional postback. Have a look into the example. Is cross page postback. Is cross page postback is a property that indicates whether the current page was requested as a result of a cross page postback. A cross-page postback occurs when a form is submitted to a different page than one that contains the form controls. This is typically done while using postback URL property of a button or other control that specifies a target URL for the postback. In simply, we can say that each cross-page postback property can indicate if the page is the result of a cross-page postback, enabling access to control and data from a originating page. Uses: when each cross-page postback is true, the properties like previous page can be used to access data from the page that initiate the postback. Have a look into the example. Understanding these properties allow developers to maintain different efficient page state management while handling user interactions effectively in ASP.NET Web Forms application. Page level properties in ASP.NET Web Forms are essential for managing the lifecycle of a web page and handling indications with the user effectively. They provide access to various aspects of the page, including request and response information, state management, and error handling, enabling developers to create dynamic and interactive web applications. Before ending this discussion, I want to describe very important three numbers of variables which is very essential to know about the variables. Number one, view state. View state variables are used to preserve data across page postback. By default, view state of one web form is not available in another web form. Example, view state, session state. Session state variables are available across all pages, but only for a given single session. Session variables are like single user global data. Only the current session has access to its session state. Simply, it is single user global data. Application state variables. Application state variables are available across all pages and across all sessions. Application state variables are like multi-user global data. All sessions can read and write application state variables. In simply, application state variables are multi-user global data.